So yesterday we had the deadliest mass shooting in American history. Now you had 59 people who were killed, over 500 were injured, when a man used a modified semi-automatic rifle to shoot indiscriminately into a crowd of over 20,000 country music listeners. Now, he did this from his 32nd story hotel room. Now, in the wake of the shooting, of course, a lot of people on the left are calling for stricter gun control measures. Now, this includes one of the survivors of the attack, but he is not from the left. Now, what makes the story very telling is actually this is somebody who would be considered very conservative when it comes to the gun rights issue. Now, this man is a guitarist who was actually playing during that music festival when they were attacked, and he said in a viral Twitter post that he was wrong about his support for the Second Amendment. Now, the man's name is Caleb Keeter, and he is the guitarist for the Josh Abbott band. And he said on Twitter yesterday that he had been a supporter of the Second Amendment for his entire life. Now, when I read that, I was like, what does that actually mean? I mean, for example, I support the Second Amendment. Now, I'm in favor of also things like background checks, closing gun show loopholes, not selling weapons to suspected terrorists, and other things that I consider fairly common sense, right? So, yes, I believe in people being able to own weapons, but I also believe that we should have some restrictions on who gets access to those weapons and what kind of weapons they have access to. Now, some people will look at that and still call me a gun-grabbing commie. And that sort of shows you what kind of discourse we have around guns in America. Now, as this relates to him, I'm assuming his support or previous support of the Second Amendment means we should have unfettered access to weapons because only a good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. That's the whole NRA mindset that they have, right? And, we need guns to keep us safe and to protect us from terrorists and home invasions and thugs and all that stuff. So that's sort of, I guess, what people like that believe. And I believe what this guy also used to believe. Now, so keep that argument in mind, right? Now, in his tweets, he said that, again, he was a Second Amendment supporter until the events of last night. Quote, I cannot express how wrong I was. We actually have members of our crew with concealed handgun licenses and legal firearms in the bus. So, wait, you had a group of good guys and they had guns. Well, what was the problem? Well, the problem, he says, is that during the attack, they were, quote, useless. Really? Well, I thought the whole line was, well, you got to have a good guy with a gun to stop the bad guy with the gun, right? Well, there's obviously a bad guy with many, many guns, but there were people in the crowd that also had many, many guns. So naturally, why didn't they just pull out those weapons and start using them for freedom? Well, it turns out that they couldn't get a hold of them. Quote, we couldn't touch them for fear police might think that we were part of the massacre and shoot us. And that right there is the most sensible line, I think, that I've ever heard. And I think this is the realization that smacked him in the face during this attack. Oh, right. If we try to grab our gun and shoot back, well, number one, what happens when the police come? They're going to think that we did it, and we're going to be dead. See, this is the thing, right? We've been trying to pound that into people's heads for years. For years. Oh, and this is the whole line that they use, right? It's whenever this happens, there's always a dumbass out there that's like, oh man, if only somebody had a gun during this terrorist attack, they could have pulled their weapon, they could have actually stopped it. Well, that's not how the real world works, dude. Number one, you're not John fucking McClane. Number two, this is not Die Hard. Okay? If you pull your gun and return fire, right, which in this case would have been a disaster, as in most cases, but number one, he's on the 32nd floor. You think you're going to hit somebody from the ground, under fire, who's sitting on the 32nd floor? He's got you pinned down. That's not a situation where you can return fire. And number two, say you're able to return fire and you miss. How many innocent people are you going to hit in that hotel when you try to return fire? And of course, number three, what he realized is, oh, right, when the cops get there, they're going to shoot you. And if you get shot by the cops in that situation, you've got nobody to blame but yourself. Okay? But look, these are the people that think that they can single-handedly stop a terrorist attack if only they are armed. Well, those people are living in a fantasy world. They're going to get themselves, they're going to get other people killed. This is what we're trying to say. We're just trying to say, hey, you know what? That fantasy of you being a good guy, great intentions aside, you're an idiot. Please don't. You're going to make the situation that much worse. And there are rare situations where there is a good guy with the gun at the right time in the right place. Now, we're accused of not covering those instances. Like, oh, look at that. The liberal media doesn't want to cover it. When this very, very rare instance of somebody saving another person's life with a gun happens, yes, it does happen. But you know what happens far more often? The opposite. Somebody gets killed with the gun that's supposed to save them. You're far more likely, and the statistics bear this out, you're far more likely to be killed with your own gun in your own home or to kill a family member on accident. It's just the numbers, it's math. And I'm sorry if you don't like math, then you're not going to like what I'm saying. But it's math. Anyway. Now, he also said that, quote, one small group or one man, he wasn't sure which I understand, laid waste to a city with dedicated, fearless police officers desperately trying to help because of access to an insane amount of firepower. Now, originally I reported that it was reported that he had 10 guns. Turns out he had 19 guns in his possession in the hotel room with him and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Now, of course, that got me thinking, wait a minute, how come nobody fucking noticed? Did you not notice all the guns being stockpiled in your room? Like when room service came, oh, hey, nice arsenal. Here's your complimentary mint. I don't know. How do you not notice that? Maybe they did notice. Maybe they didn't question it because in Nevada, open carry is legal. You can have as many guns as you want. Nobody bats an eye because freedom. Whatever. Now he continues. Writing my parents and the love of my life a goodbye last night in a living will because I felt like I wasn't going to live through the night was enough for me to realize that this is completely and totally out of hand. These rounds were powerful enough that my crews, just standing in close proximity of a victim shot by this fucking coward, received shrapnel wounds. Shrapnel wounds. He followed it up by saying, quote, we need gun control right now. I agree with that. I mean, there's nothing to dispute there. Now, look. As far as what gun control measures, I know this will always come up in the comments. Well, what might have worked to prevent this? I don't know. Not necessarily sure what overall methods would have worked. I do know of one. There are, right now, legal modifications for your guns that will allow you to shoot faster. There are things like bump fire or crank fire mods. Now, those should be off the market. There's no reason that you need to get a semi-automatic weapon to fire like an automatic weapon. Just saying. Now, that little regulation banning those, that might have actually helped in this case. And I believe that there is a federal ban on those, but some states, no, there's not a federal ban, but there are some states that do ban those types of modifications. But we don't have anything federally on the books. Now, in case you think, but wait a minute, it's my freedom. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Well, you have to remember, just like many mass shooters, this guy was also a law-abiding citizen until he stopped being one. Now, as far as Mr. Keeter, look, he's likely getting a lot of criticism from both sides. Now, definitely getting it from the pro-gun crowd, for saying that his previous stance on gun control was, quote, wrong, stupid, and selfish. Again, I agree with that, but I don't agree with that criticism. But he's also getting some criticism from the left, and I do understand this. Now, he said that my biggest regret is that I stubbornly didn't realize it until my brothers on the road and myself were threatened by it. Now, I understand that criticism, as I said, because it's the old, oh, you don't get it until it happens to you. Well, you know what? Some people are like that. They have to experience something that directly challenges their beliefs in order to affect change. Now, there are some people that go through stuff like this and they don't change at all. But at least this guy, he's like willing to examine his own belief system and say, hey, you know what? Turns out I was way fucking wrong on that. Yeah, maybe we need to do something. Because, again, traumatic moment, right? Now, if you decide, like I've seen some people do, to get all elitist on them and be like, well, you see, you're selfish, you don't believe in anything until you're personally affected by it. Dude, doing that's not going to get people to change their minds. You're actually going to put people off. You want more people to be on your side. It's not about being right. We already know we're right. You don't have to rub it in. And what you do is that you make sure, like, to welcome people to your side. Like, hey, welcome to the world of facts. Like, we're glad to have you. It sucks that you had to find out the hard way, but boy, we're glad to have you on our side now. And look, our side is not the left. It's actually, we're on the side of most of the American people. For example, on different gun control measures, like background checks, for example, a large majority of the American people agree that we should do things like that. Now, Congress, of course, they do not represent the will of the American people. And not even, like, the NRA does not represent the will of most gun owners when it comes to gun control measures. But that's what we're trying to change. And again, this a lot of this has to do with the money and politics coming from the gun manufacturers, the gun lobby, to the politicians. So, and that's why we're not getting change. But to get back to what he previously believed about gun control, well, first of all, there's this narrative that's been going on around the right, that old liberals, they just want to take your guns. They're gun-grabbing commies. Now, some people do actually want to eliminate all the guns, and I understand that position. I would say that in America, that is a minority position, but that's what they present as the mainstream leftist position. Now, that's garbage. I know a lot of liberal gun owners that are like, yeah, well, no, we don't agree that we should take everybody's guns, because I actually like having my guns, but I do want gun control, and I do think that certain weapons could be at least considered being banned. And it varies on the left on which ones and which gun control measures work, and that's a healthy debate to have, okay? But again, that's what they present as the leftist position is, no, they all want to grab your guns. And basically what that is that it's a giant-ass straw man. So they can say that if you don't support unfettered access to all weaponry, i.e. the Second Amendment, that's what they believe the Second Amendment's all about. No, shall not be infringed, Jeff, shall not be infringed. Really? Well, we have the ability to actually make regulation. I mean, we can regulate the First Amendment. If we can regulate the First Amendment, why can't we regulate the Second Amendment? And we have throughout history. So this is historical context in there. But anyway, they think that if you're for being able to do that, put some regulation, that you're basically with the gun-grabbing communists. And again, that's not true. And that's not even the mainline conservative position, I don't think. And again, that's also not the NRA membership position as well. That's only the position of some people that are on the super fringe right, and of course, some in the NRA, for example, Wayne LaPierre, who basically serves as a front for gun manufacturers. So basically, his conversion is to the majority of the American public, who do believe in gun ownership, but with certain rules and regulations that would make it harder for certain people to get their hands on certain types of weapons. So with that said, I am going to take the step of welcoming Caleb Keeter to the fight and basically say that, hey, it's good to see you here. Welcome to the fold with the rest of us. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.